Grape. But right now, Mel Sole Golf School, South Carolina, one of the best teachers in the country. Good man I had a chance to meet, and he is the teacher of a dear friend of mine, Ace Tambellini, as in Alex from East Liverpool, Ohio. Ladies and gentlemen, on the Disc Institute of Pittsburgh Newsline, talking that first set of clubs and a little Masters conversation. Let's say good morning and welcome to Rob Pratt Saturday, James Brooks. How are you, James?
I'm great, Rob. How are you?
I just got to ask you, and we'll talk more in the next segment. Boy, this Jordan Spieth, this kid's a stud, isn't he?
Oh, he's something else. He's had good instruction, been playing since he's about 4 years old. Obviously, he's been around winners. I mean, Ben Crenshaw took him around because he's from Texas as well and told him, you know, this is where you need to hit it on this green, and they played a couple practice rounds together, and I think it's really paying off for the young man.
You know, I was watching Cullen Montgomery last night, Rich Lerner, Frank Noblo on the Golf Channel. Great coverage, great coverage. And I was watching, and they were talking about Spieth, and they were saying that he really doesn't, you know, overpower the ball off the tee, but he just has the ability to make it up with the rest of his game. So is that a case of really you don't have to be as strong as people think off the tee to be successful on the PGA Tour?
Absolutely. I tell my students all the time, because the minute they pull out the driver, you know, they kind of turn into Gorilla Boy. I think it happens to everybody that golfs. But I always tell my students, you know, never swing more than 80% of what you're really capable of, because you can make birdie from the fairway, but you can't make birdie from the trees. And that's a hard thing for people to understand, but it's so true. I mean, I've played on all the tours, and no matter, I didn't even watch where the other guys were hitting it. I just played my game, and I played the golf course. And I think that's what Jordan's doing. He's playing the golf course.
All right, now to that first set of clubs, and obviously wondering whether or not you even want to play the game of golf. My question is, you played baseball at a high level, very successful. And, you know,
yes, I did.
Alex, who we both love and have a lot of respect for that family, is a really good all-around athlete, especially at basketball. But if you see someone like him and he's got game, do you tell them to maybe, you know, shy away from other sports? Or do you think hand-eye coordination, being competitive, staying in shape, all of the above, is it important to play other sports when you're growing up learning the game of golf, and even with someone with ability?
Important. Yeah, I've never, you know, we had this conversation, and I said, you know, just do me a favor and don't get hurt. But other than that, I think it's great for his overall hand-eye, and it's good for him to stay in shape. And I think it's important that he plays other sports, because all sports are competitive sports. It doesn't matter what sport it is, whether it's baseball, basketball. I don't really care what he does. I just, you know, I worry about him getting hurt. But really, I shouldn't have that kind of a worry, because his body's strong enough and he knows what to do and what not to do. So I think it's important that he plays all sports and just has a good time. I mean, he's in high school, you know. I played basketball, I played football, baseball, and I never had an injury playing any of those sports. So I think it's important for him, and it's really good for his hand-eye.
The Allegheny Health Network Orthopedic Institute, Dr. Patrick DeMeo, Dr. Edward Snell, I know them very well. They, in association with the folks at Highmark, are really plugged into the PGA Tour. They do a lot of stuff with golfers. It really is. It is a different game, physically, mentally, nutrition, all of the above today than it was when you were out there with your sticks trying to make a go of it on the tour. These athletes really are in tremendous shape, aren't they?
Oh, they're amazing. Yeah, you know, biokinetics and weights and all that. Nobody did that back in the day. I think Tiger was the first one to really understand that physical fitness is so important in the game, especially today. And he was one of the first that really showed everybody, look, you need to be in really good shape, you need to work out, you need to lift. But the thing with lifting is, and especially in golf, I think it's so important, yoga, stretching, light weights, a lot of reps is much more important. You don't want to power lift. And I almost choked on my coffee the other day when I saw Rory McIlroy working out and he's doing squats with 220 on his back. I don't think that's a very good idea, because you don't want bulk. You want to have more long, lean muscle. So I think the Joey D workouts that Keegan does, Dustin Johnson, several of the tour players go to Joey D. He's all about stretching and building the core and the legs, but doing it in such a way that you don't end up looking like Hulk Hogan. You don't need that. Bulk is not good in golf. It should be long and lean.
All right, when we come back, we're going to get into that club question as far as how do you start, really what do you need to be just on the course and to be able to play a good round of golf and hopefully take it to another step to where this not becomes a game for a professional, but just a game of life to where you have a chance to enjoy this great sport. My guest from the Mel Sole Golf School in South Carolina, James Brooks, will continue. All right, Bambino and I are going to talk a little Masters after James Garrity in for Barbara Vorthen has your local news, top of the hour. Then at 6:30, Joey DeSalvo Station will pull into our station here at KDKA, and we're going to talk vineyards, the best places to travel to visit and taste the grape from the Napa Valley to the regions in France that are world famous, and we'll get caught up on some cigar aficionado stuff as well, too. He joins us at 6:30. But right now, back to the Disc Institute of Pittsburgh Newsline. For the Mel Sole Golf School in South Carolina, James Brooks is on the line. Okay, James, how do you get started? You want to golf, but you don't really want to spend a fortune. What bags should you get, and what should you put in that bag to get started?
Well, I think the first thing is, Rob, if you're going to really get into the game, is go see a PGA Pro, whether it's at, any of the superstores, the golf superstore. The most important thing I can say about that is get the clubs to fit you, nobody else. I build my clubs on my own. I get the right shafts, the right heads, the right grips, and I do it myself. But not everybody has the tools or the knowledge to do that. So the best thing to do is make sure you go see a PGA Pro, because the shaft is really the engine in your golf swing and your golf game. And if you have the improper shaft in your golf clubs, they won't perform the way you want them to. So it's really important that you get a good fitting and then get the right engines in the shafts, because that's everything. That's really where all your power and all your stuff comes from. So they will put you on a monitor, get your swing speeds down, and then they'll try different shafts, and they'll kind of figure it out where you need to be at that particular time.
There is that brand tailor-made, but no pun intended. Do you really have to have your clubs tailor-made to your grip, your style, your height, whether you're a righty, a lefty, from day one? Is it that important, or do you just pick up a set and grip and rip?
Now, I think the worst thing you could do is walk into, Walmart and buy something off the shelf and expect them to perform, because they just won't. It's very important that you go get a fitting, be analyzed on a launch monitor like TrackMan or whatever the monitor is that they have. That's what they're there for. It measures you from top to bottom. Arm length is very important. Height makes a difference. Just like Alex Tambolini. I mean, the kid's growing so fast that I told him this year you need to go have your stuff re-looked at, because I think you need maybe an inch and a half added. And he went to a PGA guy. They did a fitting on him, and he said, well, I don't think we need to change the length of the shaft right now, but they did change his loft and lie a little bit. And loft is the loft of the face of the club, i.e. 6 irons, probably 36 degrees or 35. But the length of the shaft is very, very important, especially for a kid that's growing and went from like 5'8" to 6'2" over the summer. So I told his mom and dad, I said, really he needs to go have this looked at again to make sure. We decided to keep his shaft length standard, which is fine. And he even said they feel a little bit, short to me now. And I said, that's okay. Just get a little more knee flex in there and it'll be okay. But they did adjust the loft and lie. Now, the lie means that the club has to sit perfectly flat on the ground. If the toe's up, you need to flatten them out a couple of degrees. If the toe hits first, you need to do the opposite. So that's super, super important.
And by the way, our Masters updates being sponsored by Golf Galaxy, I love it. It's like a kid in a candy store. I just enjoy it.
Oh, yeah.
I don't play it, but I love the game, and I love talking about it and just seeing all the different bells and whistles. My question to you is there one club in that bag that you really spare no expense? Within your budget, obviously, whether you're a young man or a woman getting started or you're a seasoned professional. I mean, is it the driver? Is it the putter? Is it your 9-iron? I mean, your sand wedge? What is it that you spare no expense on, because that's going to be the go-to club to keep you on the course for a very long time to come? Because we know what happens to a lot of these young girls and boys. They get started, they get frustrated, and that's something that you can't let happen in the game of golf. What's the number one club in your opinion?
I would say the number one club to be the most comfortable with and have the most dialed in absolutely has to be your driver. Your driver is the most important club in your bag, believe it or not. Your driver sets up your entire game. So if you're missing fairways and you're in the trees, obviously there's a problem somewhere. So I would say the driver is the most important. Second most, I would say putter. You have to have something you're comfortable with and have it sized correctly, the right weight. I prefer a heavy putter. I think it makes it a lot easier on fast greens. And then I would say after that, probably your wedges, because if you don't have your wedges dialed in, you don't realize how many strokes they can save you during a round. I mean, your wedges account for 80% of the score that you write down on your scorecard. And I think, 20% of the people that play golf actually practice from 100 and in. And that's one thing I've worked with a lot with Alex Tambellini, is get those distances dialed in with your wedges, because those are your scoring clubs. And, I mean, that's what you're writing down on your card. And if you're not good or you're missized or you're not using the right shaft, you won't be able to execute from 100 and in. That was always my game. As you know, since we met, I'm not a very big guy. Now, I can still bomb it out there. I'm not saying that. But my driver is in the center of the fairway because I built it myself. I know exactly what I want it to do. And you can make birdies from the fairway, but you can't make them from the trees. And that's what I tell my students all the time. So based on what you asked me, I would say driver number one, putter number two, and then wedges for sure.
All right, let's get back to, by the way, my guest is James Brooks. He's on the Disc Institute of Pittsburgh Newsline, Mel Sole Golf School. Real quick before we get back to the Masters, tell me what goes on at that wonderful place that you are a part of in South Carolina. What do you guys do?
We teach from 3-year-olds to 90-year-olds. We have a set program to get them started, a practice routine when they get home that they can keep working on. We analyze everything on the V1, which is a program that you use for teaching. They are able to take their videos with them when they leave. We email them to them. They're always archived on our website. And the website is just melsolegolfschools.com for everybody out there if you're interested in coming down to Myrtle Beach. I work at the Pawleys Island location. And I also work at the Grand Dunes location, which is on the north side. So I live right in the middle. So I have an office at Pawleys and I have an office at Grand Dunes. We put them through a 3-day program, and we show them every shot in the bag. I mean, from the driver to the wedges to the putter to the irons, everything.